just to introduce you to my family a little bit. These were my kids in their adolescent years. You can tell that we adopted one when he was 7 years old. He was from an orphanage in the Philippines. So Becky, my oldest, is on the far side in the red. Our second child is Julie on this side, and then Tom in the middle, and then our adopted son, Jeff. And at this stage of life, I believe they are 9, 11, 13, and 15. So probably right where your kids are. So this is just to prove that we've been there. I remember as the junior high pastor, parents coming up to me and going, Doug, how do you do this? I can't believe, I go, oh, your kids are great. They're so much fun. And then I had 4 of my own. And I go, okay, I know what they're talking about now. So you guys are right in the middle of a critical time of life. The reality is your kids are going to grow up, and they are going to get married, and they are going to move away. Right now, our 2 daughters are on the East Coast. Our 2 sons are here local, but we have an empty nest. And like Peter said, it took Anita and I about 5 minutes to get used to an empty nest. And I go, oh, bummer. Yeah, okay, now here we go. So the rest of life. Have a little story to read you. It was in the San Francisco Chronicle. Maybe you can relate to this. It says, I realize that while children are dogs, loyal, affectionate, teenagers are cats. It's so easy to be the owner of a dog. You feed it, you train it, you boss it around. It puts its head on your knee and gazes at you as if you were a Rembrandt painting. Then one day, around age 13, your adoring little puppy turns into a big old cat. And when you tell it to come inside, it looks amazed and wondering who died and made you the emperor, right? Instead of following your steps, it disappears. You won't see it again until it gets hungry, when it pauses on its sprint through the kitchen long enough to turn up its nose at whatever you're serving. And when you reach out to ruffle its head, that good old affectionate gesture that you've done for years, it twists away. And it gives you that blank stare, as if trying to remember, where have I seen you before? Stunned, more than a little hurt, you have 2 choices. The first is you can continue to behave like a dog owner. After all, your heart swells when you look at your dog. You want its company. And naturally, when you tell it to stop digging in the rose bushes, it obeys immediately. Well, not realizing that your dog is now a cat, you think something must be desperately wrong with it. It seems so antisocial, so distant, sort of depressed. It doesn't want to go on family outings anymore. And since you're the one that raised it, you taught it to fetch and to sit and stay in command. Naturally, you assume that whatever is wrong with your cat is something that you did, or that you did wrong, or that you left undone. So flooded with guilt and fear, you redouble your efforts to make your pet behave. Only now you're dealing with a cat. So everything that worked before now produces exactly the opposite of the desired result. You call it and it runs away. You tell it to sit and it jumps on the counter, and the more you go toward it, wringing your hands, the more it moves away. Your second choice is to learn to behave like a cat owner, to put a dish of food near the door, let it come to you, if it will, and if you must issue commands, find out what it wants to do, and then command it to do that. But remember, a cat needs affection too, and your help. So sit there, still, and it will eventually come, seeking that warm and comforting lap that it has not entirely forgotten. So, folks, you have transitioned, many of you, by your laughter, I can tell. You have transitioned from being dog owners to cat owners, because something happens when kids hit about that age of life. And you think, oh, if I only had the perfect kid, he wouldn't do that. And you know what the reality is? The reality is, even the most perfect child that ever lived drove his parents nuts. Let me read the story of Jesus as a junior hire. And his parents used to go to Jerusalem every year at the Feast of the Passover. And when he became 12, so those of you who know Jewish culture, this is bar mitzvah, when he becomes an adult in their culture, and they went up there according to the custom of the feast. And as they were returning, after spending a full number of days, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, and his parents were unaware of it. But they supposed him to be with a caravan, and they went a whole day's journey away from Jerusalem. And then they began looking for him that first night on the road among their relatives and acquaintances. When they could not find him, they returned to Jerusalem looking for him. Can you imagine how they felt? These guys had not only lost a 12-year-old boy, Mary and Joseph had lost God. Okay. Imagine the pressure of being the parent of God, okay? And it came about that after 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking questions, and all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. And when they saw him, that means mom and dad, they were astonished, and his mother said, "Son, why have you treated us this way?" I mean, is mom taking this personally? Why are you treating me like this? Your father and I have been anxiously looking for you. It's interesting to me, Joseph never says a whole lot. And I'm wondering if it's just because of his temperament or because he knew he was the stepdad. So Jesus wasn't his son. He was a stepdad who was caring for the Son of God. And he said to them, Jesus said to them, why are you looking for me? I mean, duh, mom, dad. It's so obvious to Jesus. It wasn't obvious to mom and dad. I had to be in my Father's house. Verse 50, the classic understatement, and they did not understand. The things just makes real clear sense to your kids, and they try to explain it, and you're going, we don't get it. Well, the same thing was happening with Jesus. But then he went down with them, came to Nazareth, and he continued in subjection to them. And what I've discovered is that even the most perfect child, when he was an emerging adolescent, the community leaders were absolutely impressed. How many times have you gone to an awards ceremony or to a back-to-school night or, talk to the leaders here and go, oh, you've got the best kid and this and this and this, and you're scratching your head going, they must have him confused with some other kid, because that's not the one that lives at home with me. But that's the reality. The parents were so upset with him, and Jesus' emerging autonomy was the issue, and his parents didn't understand. So, we are absolutely convinced that you guys are great parents. We don't believe that somebody's here because your life and your family is so messed up, but we do realize that even the best of parents with the best of kids can run into situations where you go, we don't understand each other because they are changing from being dogs to cats. They're changing from being children to being apprentice adults. They're trying to do adult stuff. They don't quite figure it out yet. So here's our ground rule. Let's come faithfully. We've got 7 sessions planned. Now there's a potential 8th one that's not in your book, but the 7 sessions that we do have figured out right now are, you can just see the dates, the session number, and what we're going to be covering that night. Tonight we're covering knowing your teen and the need to customize your parenting. Come faithfully, share openly. You know what? Your kids are off at school or with their friends and they're talking about their mom and dad and what's going on, and they're scheming right now over in the junior high and high school. No. And so we need to say, hey, we need all the help. We need to help each other. We need to figure out how to encourage each other. And believe me, if you're here thinking I'm the only one that's struggling with such and such, guess what? You're not. You are not. You're not alone. We're all in this together. We are going to ask for some confidentiality, so I'm going to tell you stories about my family that I don't want leaving this room. You're going to tell stories about your situation that you don't want leaving this room. I remember once we did Who's in the Driver's Seat, And some story was shared, and a parent went home and told their kid, and then the kid spread it in the high school group, and it just sabotaged the whole deal. So whatever is said in this room, let's just keep in this room. We got to be able to be safe, to be honest with each other and open. So let's just have confidentiality. We're going to have question and answer at the end. Joel and Scott will be back here. And we're just going to ask you to bring your own refreshments if you want. You can tell this is a seminar planned by guys, right? There's no centerpieces. There's no doilies. There's no refreshments. Just grab a plain white name tag, sit down, grab your notebook, and we're jumping in. So that's what we're going to do here. By the way, the well typically is open Wednesday night, but they're not opening till October 2nd. So grab your refreshments at 7-Eleven next week if that's what you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a passage of Scripture. Proverbs 22:6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." You all have heard that. Now, some people would love to believe that that's a promise from God. Actually, it's a proverb. It means it's a wise saying, and usually it's true. And the words there, train up, refer to placing a rope in a horse's mouth so that you can guide it. So you have that soft gum of the horse's mouth interacting with the reins or the rope or something, the bit, and it's to guide, it's to train. And the second thing, train up a child in the way he should go. Now, some people have interpreted that, you train them right, you tell them what to do, and they won't depart from it. Actually, in the way they should go, if you look it up in the Hebrew, is according to their bent, according to their temperament is what that means. And so tonight, just to start out, we have to talk about your children's temperament. My daughter, one of my daughters, was an animal science major at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. And while she was there, she had the privilege of working under a guy named Monty Roberts. Does that name ring a bell with anybody here? You ever heard of the horse whisperer? We saw, what was that good-looking guy that... Yeah, Robert Redford did that movie. But anyway, so Monty Roberts, as a kid, would sit on the railing of his dad's ranch and watch his dad break wild horses. And it was brutal, and it was rough, and it was demeaning. And this kid is sitting on this rail going, these are beautiful animals with great spirits. And it's just a shame that they are broken in this fashion. I am going to figure out a different way to train horses. And so he learned the horses' patterns and the way they communicate with each other and the way they build relationships. And so my daughter actually was in a class with Monty Roberts. At the beginning of the quarter, they gave her a wild stallion, never been broken, bridled, nothing. And she had to capture it, she had to bridle it, she had to saddle it, and the final exam was capturing, bridling, brushing, saddling, and loading into a trailer without using any force. And she was able to do it. Now, so I was talking to her about this, and I said, "Oh yeah, so and then we were talking about our dogs and." He said, "No, Dad, dogs are completely different animals. They respond differently to human beings." Said a horse, their defense mechanism is to flee. I mean, if they get scared, they take off running. Dogs, if they get scared, they approach you and they attack. It's a completely different training system. And I go, different animals, different ways to train these two different animals. And a wise animal trainer will understand, like, who's the dog whisperer, Cesar? Okay, so, different approach to training animals. You have different types of animals, different temperaments, children with different bents under your roof right now, and there's probably one that might be driving you nuts more than the others. So what I want you to do is I want you to take this little quiz. Flip the page and it says Personal Strength Survey by Dr. John Trent. I want you to think about the child that drove you to be here. And maybe it's not all bad. I mean, maybe you just go, okay, I've got one child and I want to do my best job, and it's not like they're driving me nuts. But in each box, circle the word or phrase that describes a consistent character trait of your child. When you're done circling, and you know there's phrases like, let's do it now, trust me, it'll work out. If your child says that all the time, that's great. But it's a consistent character trait. So if they took charge once, that's not a consistent character trait. But if they do it all the time, just circle that. And when you're done, multiply your total by 2 and just graph it at the bottom. Okay? I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do that. So you've graphed it. So here's my graph. Here's my personality. If I were to take this tonight, I'm probably about here on the L, probably about here on the O. I'm higher on the G, and I'm higher on the B. So just, yours may have a peak over here. Yours may have a peak over here. Just figure, why don't you circle the highest one, and then on your outline, write down under B, my team's bent is A, and just put the initial that's there. In a second, I'm going to flip on are we okay?
No.
You have 2 children or 2 high points?
2 high points.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so you need to be thinking about 2 primary personalities. Yeah, this is not a perfect science, but it just kind of helps us get rolling on understanding our kids a little bit better. So yeah, if there's 2 high points, there's 2 high points. Keep that in mind. As I show you this video, and this is a little dated video, but it's the best one that I've got to describe personalities. It's a marriage conference where he's talking about marriages, but just transpose yourself into, okay, he's talking about my junior higher. So he says, how many of you have the L, high in the L category? Shoot your hands up if you got a peak and that kind of stuff. So yeah, just respond to the video when that comes up. The other thing is C. The strengths of his or her temperament are, if you see things that he is saying that are strengths about that temperament, write them down. Or weaknesses about that temperament, why don't you write those down too, and we'll take it from there.